Here's something engaging and natural for your YouTube video introduction. Okay, so I don't think I've ever been this embarrassed in my entire life. You know those moments when time just stops? Your face turns bright red, and you wish the ground would open up and swallow you whole? Yeah, that happened to me. And let me tell you, I still can't believe this actually happened. It all started like any normal day. My roommate and I had been living together for a while, and things were pretty chill between us. We had our little routines, we respected each other's space, and honestly, she was one of the best roommates I could have asked for. The only thing I hadn't really thought about? Her brother. I knew she had a brother. She'd mentioned him a few times, but he was never really around, so I didn't give it much thought. That was until that day. I was in our apartment, completely in my comfort zone, minding my own business. The thing is, when you live with someone for a while, you start feeling at home, right? Like, you stop being hyper aware of everything because you just assume it's always going to be the two of you. And on that particular day, I made a huge mistake. I let my guard down. I had just finished a long day and finally had some time to myself. So I got comfortable. You know, that kind of comfortable where you're just in your own world, not expecting anyone to walk in on you? Yeah, that kind of comfortable. And that's when it happened. 1 second, I was completely relaxed, enjoying my peaceful moment. The next second, the door swings open, and standing there, in all his wide eyed, frozen in place horror, was my roommate's brother. The worst part? I wasn't just casually sitting there. I was in the most awkward, most not ideal position you could ever imagine. For a solid 3 seconds, we just stared at each other. Him? Completely caught off guard, probably regretting every life decision that led him to that moment. Me? Absolutely mortified, brain short circuiting, and already planning my escape from society forever. Neither of us knew what to do. Do you say something? Do you pretend it didn't happen? Do you just evaporate into thin air? And then, just as fast as it happened, he scrambled to shut the door, mumbling something that I could only assume was an apology mixed with pure panic. But the damage was done. I sat there, heart racing, still processing what had just happened. How did this even happen? Why didn't my roommate warn me? And most importantly, how was I ever supposed to face him again? But here's the thing, it didn't just end there. Oh no, that was only the beginning of one of the most awkward situations I have ever been in. And if you think that moment was bad, just wait until you hear what happened next. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my heart pounding so hard I was sure my roommate in the next room could hear it. My mind was racing, replaying that horrifying moment over and over again. Did that seriously just happen? Did I actually just make eye contact with my roommate's brother while being that unprepared for company? I wanted to scream into a pillow, but instead, I just sat there, completely frozen, still hoping this was some kind of weird dream. A few minutes passed, but it felt like hours. I knew I had to move, to do something, anything, but I was stuck in my own embarrassment. And then, as if the universe hadn't already done enough to ruin me, I heard voices, my roommate's voice and his voice. They were talking right outside my door. I strained to hear, my heart somehow beating even faster now. Was he telling her what happened? Was she laughing? Oh God, what if they were both laughing? My face burned at the thought. I needed to know, but at the same time, I really didn't. I considered just staying in my room forever. Maybe if I never left, I'd never have to face him again. That sounded like a solid plan, honestly. But of course, life wasn't going to let me hide, because just as I was debating my escape, my roommate knocked on my door. Hey, you okay in there? She asked. her voice laced with something between amusement and concern. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to pretend everything was fine and just move on with my life. But instead, I made a noise, some weird, half-choked sound that I didn't even know I was capable of making. Fantastic. Now, not only was I embarrassed, but I was also making strange noises like a malfunctioning robot. There was a pause, and then she laughed. So, my brother feels really bad, she said, lowering her voice like she was trying not to make it worse. He didn't realize you were here, or that you were, you know. I groaned, burying my face in my hands. Please tell me he left, I muttered, praying that I wouldn't have to see him ever again. Another pause. Yeah, about that, she said hesitantly. He's actually staying for the weekend. My stomach dropped. The weekend? This was officially a disaster. I stared at the door, my mind struggling to process what my roommate had just said. The weekend, as in multiple days, as in I'd have to exist in the same apartment as the person who had just walked in on me in the most humiliating way possible. I wanted to cry, or run away, or maybe both. Are you serious? I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I mean, yeah, she said, sounding almost apologetic. I would have told you earlier, but it was kind of a last-minute thing. He's in town for some work thing and needed a place to crash. Great. So not only was I mortified, but now I had to pretend like everything was normal while this guy, the guy who now had way too much mental footage of me in my most unprepared state, just lived in my space for the next couple of days. How was I supposed to act like nothing happened? Because let's be real, there was no way he wasn't thinking about it too. I could already imagine the awkward interactions, passing by him in the hallway, avoiding eye contact at all costs, accidentally walking into the kitchen at the same time and just standing there, both of us too uncomfortable to even reach for a glass of water. Maybe he'd even try to joke about it to ease the tension, which would just make it so much worse. And then, as if on cue, I heard footsteps, his footsteps, getting closer. Panic shot through me. Was he coming to talk to me? Was I supposed to say something? Apologize? Why would I apologize? I wasn't the one who barged in. But before I could figure out a plan, there was another knock on my door. Hey, can we talk? The second I heard his voice on the other side of the door, my stomach twisted into knots. Can we talk? What was I supposed to do? Ignore him? Pretend I wasn't here? No, that wouldn't work. He knew I was here. But opening the door meant facing him, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that level of humiliation. I hesitated, staring at the doorknob like it might magically solve this for me. My heart pounded in my ears. He didn't knock again, but I could still feel him standing there, waiting. He wasn't just going to go away, was he? Taking a deep breath, I finally forced myself to open the door. Just a crack, barely enough to see him, but even that was enough to make my face burn. He stood there, hands shoved into his pockets, looking just as awkward as I felt. His eyes flickered up to meet mine for half a second before darting away. Uh, hey, he said, shifting uncomfortably. So that was, wow. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I didn't know what to say. Was I supposed to brush it off like it was nothing? Laugh it away? Pretend I hadn't been replaying that moment in my head on a loop since it happened? Before I could respond, he ran a hand through his hair and let out a nervous chuckle. I swear I didn't know you were here. I wasn't trying to, invade your space or anything. My sister told me to grab something from her room, and I didn't expect. He cut himself off, clearly struggling to find the right words. I bit my lip, trying to ignore how flustered he looked. It was almost reassuring to know I wasn't the only one dying of secondhand embarrassment. But just as I started to think maybe this conversation wasn't going to be the absolute worst thing ever, my roommate appeared behind him, and the look on her face told me she was way too amused by this whole situation. "Oh," she said, leaning against the door frame. "So this is happening now?" I shot my roommate a sharp look, silently begging her not to make this worse. But of course, she was enjoying this way too much. She crossed her arms, a smirk playing on her lips, and I could already tell she was about to say something that would make me want to evaporate on the spot. "So," she said, tilting her head, "you two are having a little heart-to-heart now, huh?" Her brother groaned, rubbing the back of his neck. "Can you not right now?" he muttered. But she wasn't done. Oh no. She turned her attention to me, eyes twinkling with mischief. "I mean, you guys could keep standing here looking like you both just witnessed a car crash, or—" She paused dramatically. I could tell the full story of what just happened from my perspective. My stomach dropped. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I so would," she said, grinning. "And you know I tell it better." I felt panic creep up my spine. If she started telling this story in front of both of us, I might actually have to pack up my things and move to a different country. But before I could figure out how to stop her, her brother suddenly stiffened. And that's when it happened. The real disaster. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and froze. His eyes went wide, and he suddenly looked way more panicked than he had when he knocked on my door. "What?" my roommate asked, noticing his reaction. He didn't answer right away. He just swallowed hard, gripping his phone like it might explode. Then, slowly, he turned the screen toward us. And that's when I saw it. My heart stopped. There, on his phone, was a screenshot. A screenshot of me. I barely had time to process what I was looking at before he muttered, "Uh, I think we have a problem." For a moment, everything around me faded. My stomach clenched as I stared at the screen, my brain struggling to catch up. Why was there a screenshot of me on his phone? A million thoughts raced through my head, none of them good. Had he taken it? No, that didn't make sense. He had been just as mortified as I was. Then, who did? My roommate leaned in, her playful expression vanishing the second she saw the image. "Wait! What the— Where did that come from?" she asked, her voice suddenly serious. Her brother shook his head, looking just as freaked out as I felt. "I don't know," he muttered. "Someone just sent it to me." My heart pounded. "Someone sent it to you?" My voice was barely more than a whisper. He turned the phone back toward himself, scrolling quickly. "It's from an unknown number," he said, his brows furrowing. "No message, just this." I felt like I couldn't breathe. Someone else had seen that moment. Someone had taken a picture of it. But how? Then suddenly, my roommate gasped. "Wait, the security camera." My eyes snapped to hers. "What security camera?" She paled. "The smart home camera in the hallway. My parents installed it when they visited last month. It auto-records movement." We all exchanged horrified looks. That meant it had captured everything. And somehow, someone had gotten their hands on that footage. Just when I thought this situation couldn't get any worse, her brother's phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, a text popped up. "Oops, wrong person. But hey, this is interesting, huh?" My blood ran cold. Someone was watching us. Silence filled the hallway. My hands felt ice cold as I stared at the phone screen, my pulse racing. Who was messing with us, and why would they send this of all things? My roommate sprang into action, grabbing her own phone. "I'm checking the camera app," she muttered, fingers moving fast. Her brother and I hovered over her shoulder, barely breathing as she pulled up the security footage. The screen loaded, showing a grainy clip of him walking toward my door, and then, right before he knocked, the video glitched. The feed cut out for a second, and when it came back, the angle had shifted slightly. My roommate cursed under her breath. Someone hacked this. Wait, her brother said, eyes narrowing. Go back, pause it right before the glitch. She did, and that's when we saw it. A shadowy figure near the end of the hallway. Someone had been there, watching. A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. Who is that? No one answered. My roommate was already dialing the building manager while her brother took a deep breath and turned to me. Listen, he said, this was never supposed to happen, but I promise we'll figure this out. I wanted to believe him, and somehow, in that moment, I did. The next day, the building's security confirmed someone had tampered with the cameras, but the footage was too distorted to identify them. We never found out who sent the text, but after reporting it, the messages stopped. Even though things eventually went back to normal, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching when they shouldn't have. And to this day, I always double-check my doors, because you never know who might be on the other side.